Well, it's time. The day has come. An off day on Monday prepares, hopefully, the Tigers for the biggest series of the season, arguably the biggest regular season series in quite some time against the Cleveland Guardians. We will talk about that and more all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen. Every single day, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download your app today. Here we are, everybody. Here we are. The day has come as the Detroit Tigers are set to face the Cleveland Guardians on Tuesday, September 23rd. Today, assuming as you listen to this, Tarik Skubal against Gavin Williams will be game one. And I'm already kind of terrified. I would really like it if my favorite sports team on the planet did not take over. I don't want to say win. Did not accomplish in a negative way this feat of being one of the biggest collapses in the history of Major League Baseball. I would really like for that not to happen. I know that there is a negative connotation surrounding the organization and surrounding the team right now, certainly, okay? I have played into that tenfold, right? And I know that a lot of people are kind of looking around and going, well, if they even make the playoffs, who cares? I care. Okay. We talked about it at the end of yesterday's show. I would really like to not have a historic collapse attached to this team's name. Now, even that aside, from a pure baseball perspective, we have seen time and time and time again, especially in the wild card era of Major League Baseball, that anything can happen. It is truly unpredictable. You cannot win a title, which is the point of all of this, and something I have not experienced. I have not witnessed the Detroit Tigers win the World Series in my life. That is impossible if you don't make the postseason first. So get there, and even though you have fallen on your face and tripped and fell and face planted in, you can still cross the finish line and you still control your own destiny. And once you get there, anything can happen. Give yourself a chance to right this wrong. Give yourself a chance. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying the Tigers are going to make the playoffs and then they're going to win the World Series and we're all going to laugh and forget about this. That is the last thing I'm saying. Okay? But it's a 0% chance of doing that if you miss the playoffs. It's more than zero. It could be 0.1, but it's more than zero if you make it. The whole point of all of this is to play in October. And it is still, to quote Aaron Boone, it's still right in front of you. Okay? It's still right there. You not only is it still on the table, you still have the advantage, which I know is something AJ Hinch has said a lot and fans have been rolling their eyes at. I understand. If you listen to yesterday's show, I am as frustrated as anybody about this. But you are about to embark on the final road trip of the season. There are 6 games remaining. in the 2025 campaign, the odds of a first-round bye, which I have been saying all second half, and certainly since the trade deadline, should have been the goal of this team, does not appear based on the front office's aggressiveness or lack thereof at the deadline, that they share that sentiment that a first-round bye should have been the goal. But a first-round bye is nearly impossible. It's not mathematically impossible. Okay, if the Mariners lose out and you win out, then like have fun. You know, you're back into that spot. But the odds of that happening are incredibly slim. You are playing to make it at this point. If you win the AL Central, then you'll be the 3 seed and you will play the 6 seed, which very well could just be Cleveland again. But you still have a chance to not only make the playoffs, but to still win the division. It is, however, not a guarantee, especially with how the Tigers have been playing lately. Your odds have plummeted. And Cleveland also is going to own the tiebreaker against you, unless Detroit sweeps. If the Tigers go in to Cleveland and sweep this series, then I guess technically like they would own the tiebreaker, but there also wouldn't be a tie. They would clinch the division if they swept. That is the only scenario in which in this series against Cleveland, the Tigers can clinch the division is if they win each of the next 3 games. Because then they'll be up 4 with 3 games remaining. So a tiebreaker doesn't matter anyway. It is 3 games for the rest of your lives. Not to be too dramatic or anything. As we mentioned at the top of the show, Tarik Skubal against Gavin Williams is going to be game 1. Jack Flaherty against Tanner Bybee is going to be game 2. And then a TBD for Detroit against Parker Messick, who is a 24-year-old, very young player who has been very, very solid for Cleveland so far in his first Major League season. Now, if we look at these pitching matchups and we look at how Detroit fares against them, this is not going to inject a lot of optimism into the fan base, but Gavin Williams, in 2 starts against the Tigers in 2025, has a 0.00 ERA, a 108 opponent batting average, and a 349 opponent OPS. Tanner Bybee against the Tigers in the year 2025, 2 starts of 0.69 ERA baseball, 1 earned run in 2 starts, a 152 average, and a 400 OPS. And then obviously Messick has not pitched against the Detroit Tigers so far in his Major League career, this being his rookie season, just got called up a few weeks ago. I guess we can pull up the Tigers' stats against players that are pitching against them for the first time or making a debut of some sort. They tend to do poorly. So you have 2 pitchers that, despite their stats on the year, Gavin Williams have been really good. Bybees have taken a step back. Regardless of that, have dominated you this season. And that is 2 of the 3 games. Now, on the flip side of that, Tarik Skubal against the Cleveland Guardians this year has 3 starts of 0.41 ERA baseball, a 434 opponent OPS, 32 strikeouts in 3 starts, and just 2 walks. So he has dominated Cleveland. That goes back to last season as well. Obviously, the one omission from that is the Fry Grand Slam in Game 5 of the ALDS. Outside of that game and outside of that outing, that pitch, whatever, he has really done well against Cleveland in these high leverage scenarios and really in general. Moving him up, which he was scheduled to start on Wednesday. The Tigers, with the off day on Monday, decided that they would move him up and have him pitch in Game 1. You get him to match up against Williams, give yourself a better chance against their ace. But B, and far more importantly, you give Tarik Skubal the opportunity to pitch twice in the last 6 games of the regular season for the Tigers. These are all must-win games. And having the best pitcher on the planet go twice in those games is obviously a huge advantage. Okay. Let's talk about how Cleveland got here. We'll talk about how Detroit ended up here. Then we'll riff about some, scenarios, who the Tigers, what the Tigers need to have happen the rest of the season, et cetera, et cetera. We'll do that right after this. First, though, going to talk to you all about our friends over at Nutrafol. You've probably seen a million ads for hair growth supplements and thought, sure, like that actually works. There are so many products out there. It's hard to know which ones are actually going to do anything, and that is why you should give Nutrafol a closer look. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. And it's not just hype either. This is a supplement clinically tested that targets the root causes of thinning and shedding with a proactive approach. There's so many great features. You can see thicker, stronger hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering Locked On MLB listeners $10 off of your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we, of course, will be back tomorrow recapping Game 1 against the Cleveland Guardians in what will be the 6th to last game of the season. It's a weird way to word that, but you get the point. All these games mattered a lot. So, Cleveland has been the hottest team in baseball. They're 9-1 in their last 10. They were on a 10-game winning streak there. A lot of people are focusing on the pitching, which makes sense. It has been otherworldly in the month of September. They are first in pitching production in all of baseball in the month of September, and that is by, honestly, a wide margin. It is not even particularly close. Just if you want to look at WAR accumulated by pitching, they have almost a whole win more than anybody else. It is staggering how good their pitching has been. They're the only team ERA in the month of September that's under 3, and it's way under 3. It's closer to 2.5. So while the Cleveland Guardians have been first in pitching production in the month of September, did I say month of May at one point? Whatever. We're in September. The Detroit Tigers are 29th in the month of September in pitching production. The only team they are ranked higher than is the Colorado Rockies, who are terrible and pitch in a launching pad. The Tigers have the 4th most walks allowed from pitchers in the month of September and the 5th fewest strikeouts in the month of September. That is not dominating the strike zone in any capacity. And obviously, we can talk about numbers until we're blue in the face. We all have watched. We all know what got us here. Okay? The pitching outside of Tarik Skubal has been a complete and utter train wreck. And you had an opportunity to improve it, and you didn't. You didn't at all. You actually, I don't know if this is irresponsible or too brash or like stupid of me to say. I think there's a legitimate argument, maybe not a winning one, but an argument that you made your rotation worse at the trade deadline. You actively brought in pitchers that actually made your starting rotation worse than it was pre-deadline. We will never know if that's true. We will never know if the likes of, Cater Montero and like Sawyer Gipson-Long when he was healthy would have produced more than what Chris Paddock and Charlie Morton gave you. But I think that it's not a ton of mental gymnastics to continue that's to convince yourself rather that that's the case. So that is obviously a huge discrepancy in these two teams. There is an argument that you were legitimately talking about the best pitching staff in the final month of the season and the worst pitching staff in the final month of the season. The only reason that the Tigers are not the worst pitching staff is probably because of Tarik Skubal. It goes without saying you need that to change. And again, I'm reading off numbers that you already know. Me reading you these statistics does not change anything. No one's like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Great. Thanks, Scott. It's been a train wreck. Offensively. And this is one I actually do want to point out. And the reason why is because I feel like everyone is talking about Cleveland's pitching. Again, understandably so. Their offense, which on the season has ranked terribly, has been raking in the month of September. It's not like they're winning every game 1-0. They are, this is going to shock you, giving up no runs and scoring a lot. That's a recipe for success, believe it or not, in the game of baseball. The Tigers are 23rd in just purely runs scored in the month of September. Cleveland is third. They have legitimately been the third best offense in all of baseball in this month. A big reason for that is clutch hitting. And this is going to make some people... Here you go. One of my childhood friends just texted me right now. Okay, I can't avoid it. The text messages pop up on my computer. Just texted me right now and said, hope you've been doing all right. I have a very important question. Are the Tigers choking as hard as I think they are? The answer, my good friend, is yes. I hope you're doing well. We should catch up soon. It's been a minute. But that is what everybody acknowledges at this point. One of the big reasons, again, is production with runners in scoring position. In this month, Cleveland is second in all of baseball in batting average with runners in scoring position. Okay? 323 is that batting average. I can't even say that with a straight face. 323 they are hitting with RISP in the month of September. That is mind-boggling. While the Tigers are 25th in baseball in September, batting average with runners in scoring position at 227. That is almost a 100-point difference. 100. That is, you heard me correct. Okay. Let's get to our last ad break. And then we'll get into scenarios, what we need to have happen outside of us, et cetera, kind of what else I'm looking at. All right. We'll do that right after this. First, we're going to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here. FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com. To get started, that's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. I think one of the things that AJ has said a lot that I think is important to remind the players. The fans do not want to hear it. and everybody rolls their eyes and gets upset. And I understand that from a fan perspective. I also definitely want my manager saying this to my players, which is, you've been losing a lot lately. You've been absolutely terrible. And yet still, even despite all of that, you are in first place in the division. You've pissed away every other opportunity. Okay. You've pissed away a first round bye. You've pissed away the best record in the American League. That doesn't mean you have to just watch a playoff appearance dissolve in front of you. There are 6 games left, and ultimately, you are still in the driver's seat and control your own destiny. For starters, you're going to need to win both Skubal starts. Okay, it is very difficult to envision a path where the Tigers are winning the American League Central if they lose 2 of the next 6 games, which is what Skubal is going to presumably pitch, unless they have clinched the division before game 162, and then obviously they'll just let Tarik rest. So, looking at this 3-game set, if you take 1 game from Cleveland, then going into the final series of the season, which is against Boston this weekend, going into that, you will be tied with Cleveland, and Cleveland will own the tiebreaker because they will have won the season series against you. There's no more game 163, which I think is criminal, but alas, that is the reality we live in. So winning 1 of 3 isn't great. Tied and don't have the tiebreaker, and you play Boston, who is a playoff team right now as it stands. Cleveland would go to Texas, who's not a playoff team, but still obviously a very good lineup. If you win 2 of 3, you win the series, then all of a sudden, this is a 2-game switch. Just you flip the result of 1 game, and it's a 2-game, what's the word I'm thinking of? A 2-game flip, a 2-game shift, whatever. You will be up 2 games with 3 to play. Cleveland would still own the tiebreaker against you, but you will be up 2 with 3 to play. You literally just hope that Texas can beat Cleveland at some point and you don't get swept by Boston and you're sitting pretty. That is the difference of 1 game. You're talking about like in the driver's seat with very, very small chance of blowing it to you do not control your own destiny anymore. Just with 1 result flipped. The difference between winning 1 of 3 and 2 of 3 against Cleveland. If you sweep Cleveland, you win the division. And that's not a hyperbole. That is mathematically, you have a 1-game lead going into it. If you are to win the next 3, you would have a 4-game lead with 3 games remaining. You could get swept and lose every game by 50 to Boston, and Cleveland could beat Texas every single game. It doesn't matter. You would win the Central. If you get swept by Cleveland, you would be 2 games out of the top of the American League Central with 3 games remaining, and Cleveland would own the tiebreaker. Essentially meaning the only way you could win the division is if you swept Boston and Cleveland got swept by Texas. You also then start worrying this whole time, right? We're having this conversation. You also have to worry about the objects in the mirror that are the Houston Astros. That if the season ended right now, would miraculously not be in the postseason, despite the fact that they have the same record as the Cleveland Guardians. They're right there. There are more teams in the hunt than there are spots available. So if you get swept by Cleveland, okay, you're not going to win the Central. Then you start talking about like, okay, you might miss the postseason entirely. Because Houston plays the Athletics. What are the odds that Houston is going to get swept by Sacramento or whatever we're going to call them? Probably pretty slim. As I said at the top of the show, playoffs have proven time and time again to be completely unpredictable. Just get in and see what happens. When it comes to matchups, there's a lot of scenarios. Again, it's still very statistically unlikely that the Tigers miss the postseason. It is. And I think that's important to remember. But so is blowing a 15-game lead. So I don't really care. It's on the table. We have to talk about it. Obviously, the Tigers can still win the division. They'd miss a bye and then just play Cleveland again. If they win the division, they at least get Cleveland in home games. If they lose the division and get a wild card spot, Houston doesn't win very many games, or Detroit wins 2 or 3 from Boston, then you would just turn around and immediately then just play Cleveland in Cleveland again. I can think of so many things I'd rather do. Unreal. Please no. Tigers are also tied with the Red Sox at the time of this recording for just record on the season. And they are currently wild card 2. And they are your opponent after Cleveland. So everyone's going to focus on the Cleveland series. We should. That's the series in front of us that could make or break the entire division. It's the biggest series of the year. But it's not like then after this is over, you just, no matter what happens, win or lose, you're going to have your answer. Nope, then it's still incredibly meaningful baseball. The Tigers can realistically finish anywhere from, again, missing the postseason entirely to being the 5 seed. Well, I mean, they can be the 3 seed if they win the division. Unless they go undefeated and Seattle, doesn't win a game the rest of the year, they're not going to get a first-round bye. Houston, we already talked about. The Yankees, I think, are pretty much guaranteed to be the 4 seed. They have 4 games up on any of the other wildcard teams in the hunt, but they also are 2 games back with 6 games left against Toronto, so that feels unlikely. So we're rooting against Houston and Cleveland here the rest of the season. Those are fairly obvious statements. I don't think there's any other help coming. That's something I've seen a lot in talk radio and articles and whatnot is who can the Tigers call anybody up? I really don't think at this point, no. And you probably shouldn't even, dare I say. I talked about the people they could have called up, back when September started. I think that's a lot more feasible. You give them a month of playing time, whatever. They're not going to call somebody up or add someone to the 40-man roster that isn't on the 40-man right now for 6 games. I really think that this is you see what you get. You get what you see, whatever the saying is. You might see some more pitching moves just because that's what the Tigers do. We see a billion different musical chairs type of situation with the bullpen and how it looks. But the only position players that are on the 40-man roster and not on the major league team are Colt Keith and Matt Beerling, both hurt. And then Justin Henry Malloy, who was hurt actually about a week ago. I'm not sure the status of, whether they're comfortable with him playing major league games or not right now. But I think what you see is what you get. That's the saying. Goodness. Okay. Anything else? I don't really think so. All we have in this world is hope. Okay? That's all we got. Hug a loved one. Stick together as a fan base. There's so much hostility being thrown around the fan base. We all want the same thing. Okay? Be nice to Tigers fans. You know that they're going through enough. We are brothers and sisters in arms here. And no matter what happens, win, lose, sweep, win out, lose out, make the playoffs, miss the playoffs, I will be here tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And, we're going up or down with the ship. These are the games you live for. And the context is important and kind of sours that a lot. To be honest with you, I fully understand it and recognize that. But this is peak September competitive baseball. These are the games you should be waking up dying to play. This is what every kid in their backyard when they're playing baseball growing up or playing Little League dreams of, is these meaningful fall baseball games. Game 1 is massive, okay? It's a 2-game swing. The difference between being up 2 games with 5 games left and 2 still against Cleveland versus being tied going into games 2 and then 3 after is just so massive. I don't want to say you have to win game 1 because it is mathematically possible for the Tigers to lose this game on Tuesday and still win the division and make the playoffs. But it is a massive swing in odds. The percent chance of you winning the division changes just so dramatically based on what you do in game 1. And you have the best pitcher in baseball and your best player in the organization on the mound for it. You wouldn't want it any other way. Had you been in this situation. Obviously, best case scenario is just not being, having the biggest collapse ever. Tarik Skubal, save us. Go win a ball game. Peace and love. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will, of course, be back tomorrow recapping game 1 that is hopefully a win in Cleveland. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. No matter what happens, I'll be back tomorrow. I appreciate you all greatly. Go Tigers.